Good morning, everybody. Episode 3 of the Monday Morning Quarterback. I hope all you guys are enjoying this series, as we're just trying to dive deep into our customers' race teams and help them throughout the season with any questions they have that come up. And Monday we feel is a good time to kind of debrief what happened over the course of the race weekend and hopefully answer your questions so you're better prepared for the upcoming weekend. So as far as CSI is concerned, we had a great weekend around the country and even really around the globe. Ryan Jones won in Australia, big race over there. Michael Pickens won the season finale at Western Springs in the midget. And then here in the States, we had a good kickoff to the Now 600 series with Chase Randall winning the non-wing portion on night 2 and Harley Holland winning the wing portion on the first night and the final night. So good results for us there in the micros. What else did I have in my notes? Oh, Dylan Zampa, big win out west in the junior late models. We're not necessarily known as stock car guys, even though I did spend time as a shock tuner in NASCAR. And so kind of relating some of that old knowledge to what the Zampas are doing out west. And we've made a modified version of our RSM 90 shock for them, as they have to run a steel body with that series out there. And so we've made a version of that shock that his older brother Logan put in victory lane last year, and now Dylan won his first stock car race with. So good to be working with those guys as well. Looking at my notes here. Yeah, so those were the big wins for us over the weekend. As we dive in through the season, we'll kind of recap our weekend, where I was at, where Jake or any of our other guys were at, give people kind of a second to get tuned in here, and then we'll start with answering some questions that came in last weekend through email and Facebook, and then we'll answer anybody's questions live. So last weekend I was at the Shamrock Classic, a micro and midget race. Was a good event for us. There was 45-ish midgets and mid-30s in the micros. Good turnout, good racing. I think our customers finished second, third, and fourth, with our former marketing guy, Brent Beauchamp, coming second, really close to the win there, so that was cool for Brent. And we're continuing to just develop there. So next 2 weeks are quarter midget racing for me. I'll be at Nashville for the Icebreaker and then the Dixie Thunder Clash. So that's kind of what's coming up on tap. So we'll dig into questions that were presented on the page last week after we'd signed off. And so the first came from John Johnson. Wanted to know when you change the valving on a quarter midget. So the rule of thumb for any of our customers is shock tuning is a fine tuning device. So if the balance of your car is way off, shocks is not the first thing you should go to. We need to get the balance of the car good, the baseline good, and then we'll dig into shock tuning. So as far as quarter midgets are concerned, once I have a good baseline and my car's rolling around the track nice and how I'd like, and I'm looking for that last half-tenth to a tenth, then we'll start looking at shock tuning. So if it's a lower powered car and we feel like we're just in the racetrack too hard, we might look at taking some rebound out of the right rear shock. If we need the car to turn better, we might look at increasing rebound in the right front or decreasing compression. But we don't go to a shock tuning change until we have a really good baseline. So hope that answers your question, John. Next question came from Danny Milner. And he was asking if we had a spring available for the right rear. We do not, and the reason is we feel our new bump rubber kit is superior to a spring in our application. So the advantages to a spring are, number one, they hold up great with heat. They don't change rates with heat. And number two, they're very durable. We've found neither of those to be of concern in our core markets, micros, midgets, sprint cars. That's more a concern for heavy race cars, and so dirt late models, pavement late models, where they're sitting a 3,000 pound race car on that bump rubber or bump spring. The spring is an advantage. That's not what we're doing with ours. So we've steered away from the spring because how you have to set that gap is so vital. It ramps up rates so quick. The margin for error is really small. So when we set out to design our bump rubber kit, we wanted something that was more user-friendly and more tunable. So we've steered away from the spring for that reason, and we feel like our new bump rubber kit is an advantage for our customers. It's easier to tune with, and so that's why we've done that. Hope that answers your question, Danny. What was the next question? We've gotten a couple questions about the new bump rubber kit and wanted to put it in a cup. It's not designed to go in a cup. So if you're running our conventional pyramid shaped foam, that's got to go in a cup, but the new style kit's not designed to go in a cup. If you're wanting to conceal it from your competition, we have a nice bag that it goes in. So Velcro bag, the whole kit kind of is contained in that, and it doesn't affect the rate. So that's kind of where we're at there. Before I dig into any of the other questions I'm looking at on my screen down here, any of you people that are tuned in live have questions from last weekend that we can answer. And this is meant as a forum for CSI customers or anybody that has a question. We're going to do our best to answer it and help get you guys tuned in and do what we can to improve your program. No questions so far. I see John Randall has tuned in. We congratulate you on a great weekend. It's cool to see Chase back in victory lane. So we'll dig into the next question I had emailed in was from a customer running a limited 360, so more along the lines of power of a 305, heavy car, quarter-mile track. And his first question was, what is he going to do besides his driving to improve his program with shocks? He's recently switched from our RS15 to our 15 LT. That's a good move for lower powered cars and really any of our wing cars. With the large body twin tube, we're able to get a curve that's more desirable for the wing applications. A little more grip and a little less control, which isn't as big of an issue in a wing car. So we would recommend the LT as far as a twin tube is concerned for our wing application. So number one, that was a great move. We think you'll see improved grip with that package, and that should help you. His second question was, are you running... he has a problem with the car turning on these little tight bull rings with low horsepower and not a lot of wing speed. So my question to you would be, are you running a bump rubber? And if you are, what's that gap? You probably need to open up the bump rubber gap on your left rear to let the car travel. If you're not running a bump rubber and you're still struggling, we would probably start with more tilt to help the car rotate on those little short tracks. His next question was, do we ever run a softer left rear compression than a 3? And again, for those of you tuning in, this is referring to a limited 360 along the lines power of a 305, so it would work for the 305 guys too. So we have tried a 2 compression, which I hate to use those old valving numbers. That would be about 25 pounds at 3 inch per second, 25 to 29-ish. We have tried that soft. It hasn't worked well. Reason being, the car sits on the left rear so hard down the straightaway when you have the most wing speed that doesn't roll into the corner real nice. So typically what we would do there, rather than going softer on shock, is maybe going softer on bar, or opening up that bump rubber gap, or just taking some turns out of the left rear to give the car a little more tilt. And the last question from this gentleman was, can you have too much tie down in the car? Absolutely, and this is how you know. So in an extreme instance, if you have too much rebound in your shock, it'll hold the tire out of the track. Might be very visible, might not be. You might get a hop. So if you're going through an imperfection in the track and the car has too much rebound, it doesn't let the tire return to the surface as quick as it should, and it holds that tire out of the track. An analogy I always use is like the Supercross guys, they run very light rebound, and you can imagine through the whoop section of a motocross track, if they had too much rebound, it would hold that tire out of the track, and they would hit abruptly on the next surface of the next jump they would hit, and where they want the tire to return to the track to make that as smooth a transition as possible. So in an extreme instance with the applications we're in, too much rebound, it'll hold the tire out of the track. In just a little bit too much rebound instance, would give you a sensation like on a wing car of being too free on entry. It would hold the left rear down too long and slide the right rear on entry, making the car free on entry. So that could be an instance of too much rebound. Too much rebound in the front, holding the nose of the car down on exit of the corner, not letting the weight transfer to the rear tires, and spinning the tires on exit. That could be another instance of a little bit too much rebound. So anybody that's tuned in have questions pertaining to shock setups, feel free to come in and ask some questions and we'll get going from there. Best shock length valving, non-wing, 360, left rear, sprint car, asking for a friend from Don O'Keefe. So length really is going to depend on the type of chassis you have. So if it's a twin tube, we would probably tell you a 9-inch. If it's a gas, an 8-inch. So that kind of brings up a topic. When you're measuring the length of the shock, it's actually the amount of shaft sticking out at full extension. That's where we get the measurement from. So the reason we say 8-inch in gas is because we have added length in the body with the base valve, gas chamber, etc. So it's going to have an extended length, eye to eye, bottom of the shock to top of the shock, very similar to a 9-inch twin tube, and that's why we tell you an 8-inch gas. But you're actually measuring how much shaft is sticking out of the shock. So if we ask you what length shock you have, that's how you would measure. Measure from the bottom of the shock to the top of the rod end, and that's what length shock. Valving, Don, typically in that type of car, we're going to be, in old numbers, which again I hate to use, 3.5 to a 4 compression, so in the 40 to 55-ish range on compression. That's your 3-inch average number. And rebound, if you're going to be non-adjustable, we're probably going to be looking in the 450 range at 3-inch per second, which in old numbers would be like a 10 or an 11. And we would recommend an adjustable shock in that application if it's legal. Non-wing car, you're going to need to pull some rebound out of that thing as it slicks off to get weight transfer to the right rear. Any other questions for people tuned in from the weekend? People are slow to ask questions. So again, for everybody tuned in, this is just going to be an informative Q&A for people that are CSI customers or not. We're just trying to help answer questions that might have popped up throughout your course of racing the weekend previous, and try to get you feeling better about going into the next weekend's racing. We're going to do this every Monday, no matter where I'm at, whether I'm in the office or traveling. We'll do it on Monday. We're going to try to always do it at noon, although coming up here when we get into May and I'm at the Speedway, we'll probably do those in the evening time since we'll be on track around noon. Justin Stretch. Need to change valving from coilover to torsion bar. Typically, no, if your spring rates are going to be similar. So if your overall spring rate's going to be similar, you're going to put a spring on it that's going to give you a similar rate to the torsion bar. Typically, we don't need to change the shock valving. Ryan Riley, how important is the 0 number? I assume you're referring to the left rear, because that's really the only corner of the car that we're talking a 0 number in dirt applications. Stock car racing, pavement late models, 0 number on their front shocks is really important. So on the left rear of a wing sprint car, that 0 number is really important, and the reason being, we don't travel very fast in the rebound direction on a left rear shock in a wing application. So we look very closely at the 0 to 1 inch per second number, and that is very important because that's what the driver's feeling. So we call that 0 point the crossover. As the shock goes from compression to rebound, it's crossing over that 0 speed on rebound as it's ramping up a lot throughout the course of a lap. So Ryan, that is a really important number, and if there's more questions I could answer for you on that, feel free to give me a call or email me, and I can talk you through that a little bit more, but that is something we look at. I had another question on here, people asking about our shock packages. So just to clarify, every shock we build at CSI is custom built for its intended user. So if you were to walk through our shop, which maybe on one of these videos we'll do a quick shop tour before we get started, there's no completed shocks in this shop other than shocks that are over in our test area that we maybe used for testing a new valving, new piston, or something of that nature. Every shock's built kind of one at a time for its intended user, and we do that for a couple reasons. One, there's so many options and variables when building the shocks, it's really hard to pre-build kits. And two, everything really anymore is built specific for what you need. So when you order a set of shocks, whether it's on our website or you call in, we're going to ask you a series of questions and really make sure that we're building you not only the length and style shock you need, but the valving as well. Because of that, typical lead time is a week or so on a new shock package. During the real busy times of the year, it might get to 2 to 3 weeks. This time of year, we just got through a real busy time. It might be closer to a week and a half right now. I'd have to look at our production schedule, but every shock is custom built, and so that's how that is. And then during the race season, we always prioritize our rebuilds and revalves over new shocks, because those of you who have bought into our program, you believe in our product, we want to make sure we get you back up and running and you don't miss any races. So our promise to our customers have always been, if we have the shock on Tuesday, you'll have it back by Friday during the season. So we prioritize those jobs ahead of new packages during the season. So might be a week or so lead time during the race season as well. So if nobody else has any questions, we'll sign off for today. If you think of something after this video is done, feel free to email me, Garrett at csishocks.com. That's Garrett at csishocks.com. Or comment on here. I go back through and try to briefly answer any questions that got asked after we signed off, and then we might also just address it in next week's video. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We hope you're enjoying this. We're getting better at doing these videos and just trying to improve our interaction with everyone. So thanks a lot. Hope you guys all have a great week, and look forward to talking with you again next Monday.